You open your eyes?
Really good pass, right here, chest pass.
Come on, August. Reach in the front.
Yo, what's good, y'all? My name's Ago, short for Santiago, and this is my story. I had a very normal childhood growing up in the suburbs of Sandy, Utah, a small city in Salt Lake City. Looking back at it, we had everything easy, and I'm grateful that I was blessed to have grown up the way that I did. Growing up, basketball was basically the center of my life. It was all that I thought about, and honestly all I did. Me and my dad would stay in the gym literally 3-4 hours a day, working on my game and getting better at my craft, putting up hundreds of shots a day. I loved it though, and I wouldn't take any of those late nights and early mornings for the world. Sometimes I look back at those days and I miss it a lot. Life was a lot more simple back then. Basketball was part of my daily routine. I stayed in the gym and would even plan my days around training. It was always a goal to make the varsity team in high school, play college basketball, and God willing, to go to the league or play somewhere overseas. Mind you, me and my dad started to really take basketball serious around 3rd, 4th grade. And then as I got older and started to get pretty good, we started to really double down. Basketball quickly became my entire life and pretty much all that I knew at the time. It was my life goal to go as far as I possibly could with hoop, and I committed myself to it every single day. The year before high school, my 8th grade year, I was starting to get really confident in my game. But then I broke cartilage off my knee and had to get surgery. This was my first ever injury that I'd ever suffered from. And I honestly thought it was the end of the world and that I was never going to be able to walk again. But a couple months passed by and we're back on the court. Luckily during this time is around the same time as peak Fortnite. And those of you who know that 2018 Fortnite was the greatest game year of all time. So during this time I got really good at Fortnite. In my first year of high school, I honestly felt really out of place. Like most freshmen going into high school, it was like entering a whole new world that you didn't even know existed. I had a pretty normal freshman year, but I didn't make the JV varsity team that year. And it made me really mad, because I knew that I was more than capable of playing up with the upperclassmen. My freshman year, like most people, was my warm-up year, and just a year of me really getting used to playing high school basketball. I was also 5'6" at the time, and everyone really towered over me. Anyways, freshman year goes by. I played freshman, sophomore all season, but the goal stayed the same for the next year, to make varsity. My sophomore year of high school is when my entire life changed forever. The summer after my freshman year, I started to take my body more seriously and started lifting. And I grew 4 more inches to 5'10". I was improving on every single aspect of my game, and I knew that this season, no matter where I ended up this year, I was going to go crazy. I went into my sophomore year at the time the most confident I had ever felt in my life, on and off the court. Then basketball season comes around, and I am confident that this year would be the year that I would make the varsity team. I felt like I had done everything to make it that year. I put in all the work that I needed to, and I had all the confidence in the world. During preseason open gym sessions, I was always playing up with the upperclassmen, and that's when I really started to get close with all those guys on and off the court. Some of my best friends to this day. Then tryouts come around, and how it worked at my high school was that the first day, all the lowerclassmen would try out together, and then all the upperclassmen would try out together. The second day, if the coaches thought you were good enough, they would put you on the list and bump you up to try out with the upperclassmen. Mind you, my high school at the time was super competitive. I remember nobody would even talk to each other the entire week of tryouts because everyone was so locked in solely on making the team. Especially with my class. We had so many sophomores that year that could have played JV varsity, so best believe I was locked in and made sure that I did everything in my power to make that varsity team. I got pulled up to the varsity tryout the next day, and then everything got serious. I didn't want to mess up my chances of making varsity that year, and I didn't. I went out and had probably the best tryout that I had ever had in my life. The next day were final cuts, and we would find out whether or not we made JV varsity. I remember walking into that locker room feeling sick because I knew that even if I had the best tryout of my life, I still knew how my coaches were. I go up to the list and look at the JV varsity list and don't see my name. I got cut from the varsity team another year. I thought it was an actual joke. They had only pulled up 2 of the 8 sophomores that should have made the varsity team that year. It was me and 5 others that were pushed down to freshman sophomore practice, but we would switch off with practice being with the JV varsity team. We were basically the entire JV team that year too. We just didn't dress varsity. Really weird situation, but I didn't let it affect me and still balled out. Not gonna lie, I was doing exactly what I knew I was gonna do going into that season. I was starting both sophomore and JV that year, and the coaches were even talking about giving me a chance to dress varsity. I knew it was only a matter of time. Everything seemed like it was going my way, and the only way was up. Then, that day happened. Man, I feel like I've told this story 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways to 1,000 different people. And it's about time I finally got my story out to the world. This is where it all starts. This is the story of the day my life changed forever. January 15th, 2020 started off as a normal day. I woke up, did my routine, went to my classes, and I had practice after school. But this day, practice was different. JV varsity didn't have practice because they were watching film that day. So me and the 5 others, who were always moving back and forth between practices, were all in the same practice for the first time in a long time. So practice that day was super competitive. Then there was this kid on my team. He was a freshman at the time. I didn't really talk to him that much, but I didn't think that there was any bad blood between us. He was on my team during the drill that we called full court cutthroat. I'm not going to get into detail on how the drill worked, but if you know, you know. But that was when the kid on my team started not trying the drill. I would consider myself at the time to be one of the main guys on the team, especially at the freshman sophomore level. And a few colorful words were said, but nothing that wasn't crazy to say. Basically telling him to start trying or just to hop out of practice and not waste our time. Mind you, I wasn't the only one on our team during the drill saying something to him. That was when he started to press me, yelling, "Meet me in the locker room, meet me in the locker room." My first reaction was to laugh because I'd never gotten pressed in my life. And plus we lived in Sandy, Utah, and nobody ever talked like that. Honestly, I didn't take him seriously. I thought he was just talking just to talk. So I repeated it back jokingly, like, "Meet me in the locker room." Because like I said before, I wasn't the only person that said something to him. That was all that happened. The rest of practice went by smooth, and everyone had completely forgot about what happened. I remember him actually ending up sitting out and not practicing for the rest of practice. We get done with practice, and then we go to the locker room. Everything is normal, just like another day after practice. Everyone is talking and laughing and joking around. And all of a sudden, the kid comes up to me and pushes me against the lockers. He holds his fist up ready to fight, bawling his eyes out crying. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, "Why do you gotta be such a dick to me, Aldo?" I was very confused at the moment because, mind you, me and this kid didn't really associate with each other outside of basketball practice, and even then we really didn't even talk to each other. The first thing I said was, "First of all, why are you crying?" Then out of the corner of my eye, I see one of my teammates filming, and that's when I knew something didn't feel right about the entire situation. Most of the entire freshman sophomore team was in the locker room at the time too. So then I said, "I'm not fighting you. Why would I risk getting kicked off the team by fighting you?" Then I say, "This isn't worth my time, this isn't worth your time," and shrug him away. I turn around and grab my phone out of my locker and text my mom to come get me since I couldn't drive at the time. And boom, he cheap shots me. Sucker punches me in the back of the head. I fall forward, regain my balance, turn around, and instantly tackle him against the locker. He hits his head, and now I'm on top of him ready to fight. Then I feel the worst sharp pain in the back of my head, throbbing, thump, 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 excruciating pain. So I push him away and end it. That was the end. Nothing else happened. I started crying because I was in so much pain. I was the only one in the locker room after that. And I remember random people who weren't a part of the team started walking in and out of the locker room just to see me sitting down on the floor, holding my head, crying. This was frustrating me because nobody other than the players and coaches could be in the locker room. I immediately texted my mom to come get me. About 5 to 10 minutes pass and my mom gets to the school. One of the varsity guys walks into the locker room and sees me crying in pain and asks me what happened. Keep in mind, if varsity would have practiced that day, none of this would have happened. Because like I mentioned before, most of the guys on the varsity team that year are still some of my best friends to this day. And since they had film that day, the only ones that were in the locker room that day were those who were in the freshman sophomore practice. There's a lot that could have avoided the entire situation. But as much as we could think of all the woulda, coulda, shouldas, it still happened. My teammate on varsity and another teammate helped me grab all my things and walk me to my mom's car. My mom sees my 2 teammates walking me out and instantly knows something's wrong. She gets out of the car and then immediately wants to go into the school and confront the kid. But I tell her that my head hurts and that I just need to get home. I get in the car and we are now on our way to pick up my little brother from school. My head was down the entire time, covering my eyes with the hood of my sweatshirt, keeping me from being exposed to sunlight because it would cause more pain. Even though my brother's school was right around the corner from my school and we only lived 5 minutes away from the school, it felt like forever until we actually got home. When we got home, I immediately went to lie down on the couch and try and take a nap. I didn't really want to go to the hospital and avoided going at all costs. I don't know why. Looking back at it, I was just clueless to everything that was happening and felt like it was just a headache and that I could really push through it. Then I started throwing up. Now, at the time, me and my parents weren't aware that throwing up is a sign of a concussion or a brain injury. So we were naive to the entire situation, and plus, I was really stubborn and did everything that I possibly could to not go to the hospital. I would go to the couch, lay down, 5 minutes would pass, and I would throw up again. After about 5-6 times of this happening, it got to the point where I started throwing up blood. I told my mom and she immediately wanted to take me to the hospital. I was so stubborn. I said, no, let's see how I feel in a couple hours. So I go to my room and I actually fall asleep. Mind you, at this point, it's like 5 or 6 in the afternoon. I don't wake up till 9 or 10 at night. I wake up from my nap and I'm immediately overstimulated. I have all my friends and family calling me and texting me, asking me if I'm okay. And on top of that, my parents start to ask me what happened, trying to understand what was going on. I remember briefly telling them what happened and immediately getting in the shower. This is when my eye starts to puff up. I get out of the shower, covering my eye, hiding it from my mom, and when she sees it, she says that she's taking me to the hospital right now. Again, I was a stubborn-ass 15-year-old kid that didn't know how serious life can get. I said, no, Mom, I don't want to go to the hospital yet. Let's just see how I feel tomorrow morning. So I do my chemistry homework and then go right to bed. I vividly remember waking up that night and being like, damn, my head hurts, and then immediately falling back asleep. I would always do this weird thing where I would set my alarm 2 hours before I woke up, so I would wake up and realize that I still had 2 hours of sleep. So that same night, my 4 o'clock alarm goes off, and my mom realizes that I'm not turning it off. She walks into my room and turns on the light to see me unconscious and having a seizure. She screams, waking up my dad, and then he sees me and immediately calls 911. The ambulance shows up at my house and rushes me to the hospital. They quickly scanned and found that I have an epidural hematoma. Basically, the punch had caused a slow brain bleed in between my skull. A 1 in a million chance of this happening. They then performed immediate brain surgery on me, and after that, I was in a coma for 2 whole days. I was diagnosed with a severe traumatic brain injury, or TBI for short. Mind you, I had no clue that any of this was going on, since I was unconscious. I don't remember much from the ICU, but I remember glimpses and flashes of nurses and people who were close to me in the room. But I wasn't aware of everything going on, and nothing felt real, almost like a dream. It's crazy because the one thing that I vividly remember is seeing my friends' parents or my coaches praying for me. I didn't know what was going on, but all I knew at that moment was that God was there with me the entire time. My first conscious memory was when they were transporting me from the ICU to Primary Children's Hospital. I remember waking up inside of an ambulance and being confused as to why I was in the ambulance, and then immediately losing consciousness 5 seconds after. Like I said, everything at the time felt like a dream, when in reality everything was happening in real time. The moment that I really regained consciousness was when I saw my mom talking to a doctor in the hallway with the door to my room open. She then started crying at what the doctor was telling her. It was almost like I was instantly fully aware of everything that was going on. And at the moment, I realized I couldn't talk or get up out of my bed myself, or I couldn't even feel my legs really. It was a weird feeling, almost like waking up from a nightmare, but the nightmare was real the entire time. And that was when the journey to recovery began. This was just the beginning of my 2-month stay in the hospital, and boy was it hard. I had to relearn everything, how to walk, talk, eat, and drink. I couldn't even use the bathroom by myself. It was the first time in my entire life where I felt incapable of doing anything. I remember always feeling foggy and loopy and feeling too tired to do certain things. Brain fog was a huge part of why I couldn't function normally, especially during the early stages of my recovery. It was like feeling lightheaded, tired, and dizzy all at the same time. It was hard, but I knew that I was going to do everything that I possibly could to get back on the basketball court. That was the main goal, and the only thing I would really think about was getting back on the basketball court and playing the game that I loved. That became my drive and motivation every single day, and honestly, the main reason to get back to living a normal life. I couldn't talk for the first couple of days, and then all of a sudden I just started talking. I remember my mom being happy and crying tears of joy while listening to me talk nonsense. I didn't realize that I was actually talking because I would always talk and say things in my head so much that it became normal, and I felt like I was talking to everyone around me. I'd always ask my mom why she was crying and say that everything was going to be okay. She'd always just look at me and smile. On top of relearning how to do everything again, my left eye was sealed shut, and it was almost like my eyeball was looking towards the side of my head. My eye would slowly but surely start to open up, but just because it was opening up, my entire eyeball was still shifted, meaning I couldn't see out of my eyes still. This caused my vision to see double, forcing me to wear an eye patch on one of my eyes just so I could see normally. I couldn't believe that I looked the way I looked, and would even joke around with my parents and family saying that I looked like Sloth from the Goonies. I also had a lot of stiffness in my body. The doctors and nurses would call it tone, and the right side of my body was a lot slower than my left side. Basically, since I was hit on the lower left side of the back of my head, this caused the right side of my entire body to be slower than my left side. I had the hardest time since I'm right-handed. My entire body would shake in tremors every time I got up from sitting down for a long period of time, and my right hand would occasionally shake uncontrollably to the point where I had to just wait for it to stop shaking on its own. I also walked with a limp, and my right leg would always buckle every time I took a step. My body wasn't capable of functioning properly, and it was the most frustrating thing ever. I was super insecure at this time, which is the main reason why I told my parents to not let anyone that I knew from my team or out of my friends see me like this. I was embarrassed more than anything. But looking back at it, I wish I would have let people see me in the condition that I was in to get a better understanding of everything I had to go through. I remember my first time ever looking at my phone and seeing all the love that I was getting on my Instagram. And a few family friends had even made a whole separate account dedicated to my recovery called I'll Go Strong. Seeing all the love and support online and people really checking in on how I was doing meant a lot to me. To this day, I still remember my entire schedule that they gave me in the hospital. A nurse would come in and wake me up around 7 or 8 a.m. every single day and give me my supplements and meds that they had me on and ask me what I wanted for breakfast. My go-to was always eggs with hash browns and either bacon or sausage with a piece of toast and a smoothie. Except at the beginning, they wouldn't even let me have a smoothie since I couldn't really swallow liquids properly. They would put this powder in my drink that would make my water lemonade thick, almost like I was drinking Jell-O. I hated it, but when I finally passed the liquid test, that was the happiest day of my life, since I could finally drink whatever I wanted without that nasty thickening powder. Sometimes I'd have a school teacher come in and give me math problems or something to read, just to check if I was still somewhat functioning properly and to slowly ease me back into school. Anyways, from around 9 a.m. to noon, I would have speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy, all in that order. Then it would be lunchtime, and I would either take a nap before or after lunch every single day. I would also sometimes have acupuncture done while I took a nap. Then when I woke up from my nap, I would repeat everything in the same order: speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And then I would take another nap until it was dinner time. Sleep was essential to my recovery, as that's where my brain would really start to heal and repair everything that I had lost. I remember the doctors telling me that I needed to make sure that I took these naps just so my brain had more time to restore the neural pathways and build up everything that I lost from my injury back to normal. Dinner time was always my favorite time. All I would ever watch is either college basketball or the NBA on TV. And that was also around the same time my entire family would come visit me. My cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles, my entire family would be at the hospital every single day. We would eat dinner together in my small hospital room, whether they bought it or I ate something from the hospital. That was my support system and honestly what I look forward to every day. That was honestly what got me through the hospital during those 2 months. I remember one Sunday nobody could make it to the hospital, and that was the saddest day because I was reminded of my entire situation, like, oh yeah, I'm still in the hospital and can't really do much about it. It was almost like every day I saw them, it would make me feel normal and everything would be okay. And in reality, we really didn't know if everything would be okay. But I did. I knew I was going to get back to normal and I was willing to do whatever it took. After dinner time and spending time with my family, my dad would always help me shower and we would always go on a walk around the hospital and just talk. My dad would cry every day and I would say to him the same thing I would say to my mom, that everything was going to be okay and that I'm alive. I really look forward to our walks in the hospital and we made it our little thing to always touch the painting that they had of Mike Wazowski on the wall. It became me and my dad's little joke to always dap up Mike on our walks. I wouldn't sleep much at night and I remember just staying up thinking and repeating what happened in my head as I was hopeless and couldn't even move without support. I would just get mad at myself and blame myself for what happened. I would play out different scenarios and what I could have done differently at that moment in time in my head. I eventually learned that this wasn't going to change anything and I couldn't work myself up over things I couldn't control. I eventually started to turn those thoughts into visualizing myself back on the court playing with all my teammates. This gave me peace knowing that I could work my way back. I remember all the nurses and doctors would always tell me everything that I wouldn't be able to do when I left the hospital. Granted, I know they're supposed to say this to everyone, especially because it's so difficult to tell how the brain is going to heal after suffering from a severe TBI. They would always tell me how I wouldn't be able to play basketball again, hang out with my friends, or even drive. This lit a fire inside of me, making me so mad it would bring me to tears because they didn't know who I was and that I was going to do everything that I possibly could to live a normal life and do all the things that I wanted to. After a difficult 2 months, I was finally prepared to go home. Little did I know, the journey was just getting started. Adjusting to being back home was hard. There were days I had dark thoughts, days I felt hopeless and kept asking myself, am I ever really going to get back? But even when things got difficult, I never quit. Some days were hard, some days were manageable, but the goal stayed the same: keep going. COVID had just started and everything got canceled. It was honestly a blessing in disguise. Life slowed down and I could focus on recovering without having to worry about missing out on anything since everyone was on lockdown. My first day at physical therapy and Networks felt like a blessing. That's where I met the two Matts and Marissa. I worked with them the most. I remember still having a buckle in my walk. I kid you not, the very first day of therapy, Marissa had me walk in a circle for a few minutes, and she could instantly tell what was wrong. She put me in a harness, got me on the treadmill, and had me lock in on the basics, just walking. And then it clicked. It's like my brain all of a sudden remembered how to walk again. The buckle was gone. They also have a basketball court inside of their facility, and that became my spot. Me and my dad would go shoot before therapy, and the first day I was very excited. And honestly, that was the worst day. That's when I realized how far I still had to go. I couldn't dribble and move at the same time. My whole body felt weak. I couldn't even finish a layup. Then he told me he was proud of me and loved me no matter what. That was all I needed. When they gave me the at-home program for quarantine, me and my dad spent hours doing it, training my body, training my brain, little by little, and doing everything possible just to improve. Looking back, my parents did everything they could to give me what I needed. We'd put up shots, jump rope, and do whatever I was allowed to do. I couldn't run for a while because of how serious my injury was, so we adjusted. Slowly but surely, I started to make great strides of improvement, and eventually got back to running up and down the court. Basketball quickly became my everyday therapy. It was hard because my body couldn't do things that I was able to do before, so I had to adjust my game to fit my current circumstances. The biggest struggle for me was realizing that my body was more restricted and limited in what I could do on the court. But the hardest part really wasn't the exercises, it was adjusting to reality. Realizing everyone else still had their own lives and most people had no idea what I was carrying. I started questioning who really cared, and I hate to say it, but I even wondered if some people were secretly relieved, like I wasn't a threat anymore on the basketball court. That messed with my confidence, especially once I got back to playing. The stigma around TBIs is real. It made me feel slow sometimes. People assumed I wasn't capable of doing certain things. Some tried to take advantage of me. The looks I got when I stuttered or struggled to speak. The jokes, the names, all that stuff stuck. And once I started doing better, people stopped checking in. Like the story was over. But in reality, I was still living it. All that doubt built up during my last 2 years of high school basketball. Nothing was the same. In the summer of 2020, I played in my very first tournament since my injury had happened. I remember my parents being really worried because they knew I wasn't at 100% yet. I remember being so excited to finally play in my first real game back. I didn't know how I was going to do, but I felt like I needed it. After everything I had been through, all I wanted to do was hoop. I wasn't even cleared to play by my doctors, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was hoop. The first day of the tournament was hard. I felt slow with my movements and remember feeling really frustrated. I didn't play much since my parents told my coaches to slowly ease me back into it. I only played one half in each of the 2 games that we played. I hit my first 3-pointer in one of those games, and it felt amazing. The next day was a real test. My parents let me play 2 full games, and I felt better prepared going into these after the day before. I scored 15 points in both of those games, 30 points combined. I remember having a crucial turnover at the end of the first game that we played, and it costed us a game. I felt terrible, almost like I failed. But then I realized 6 months ago, I was on my deathbed, fighting for my life. And here you are again, playing. And you just had a 15-point game. This was the moment when I felt like I could really get back to playing at 100%. And I'll be real, junior year felt weird. I felt more out of place than I ever had. It wasn't like people didn't know me. People knew me. But it felt like they only knew me for one thing, the incident. I could tell it was the first thing some people thought about when they saw me. That's when the stigma was at its peak. Some people treated me like I was fragile, others treated me like I was slow. And the crazy part is, even when nobody said anything, I could feel it. The looks, the tone, the way conversations would shift. On the court, it messed with me too. Every mistake I made felt amplified. If I missed a shot or turned the ball over, it wasn't just he missed or turned the ball over. It felt like, see, he's different now. He's not the same. If I got tired, if I hesitated, if I needed a second to think, people acted like that was proof. And at the same time, I was still dealing with things nobody could see. My confidence wasn't fully back yet. My body was still catching up. My brain was still adjusting. I was still trying to be the same kid I was before, while also learning how to live as a kid after. That's when I started realizing something I didn't want to admit. Coming back physically was one battle, but coming back mentally was a whole different fight. December 31st, 2020 was the most emotional day I've ever had in my life. Nothing was going my way. I was stuck on JV, no varsity minutes, and it felt like I didn't exist, like I was just there. The thought of if I had never gotten hurt, I would be out there starting kept entering my head over and over again. Even dumb little stuff was getting to me, like my skin breaking out and me starting to get acne. All I really wanted was a real chance. I wasn't asking for a handout, I wasn't asking for a favor, just one opportunity to prove I could play varsity basketball. And I knew I could, I just needed someone to believe in me. But the coaches who helped me and believed in me the year before weren't even on staff anymore, and I didn't feel like I had anybody in my corner. We were at a tournament. Varsity had already played, and our JV game was later in the auxiliary gym. From the jump, I felt sluggish. Then we started playing, and it almost felt like nobody cared. The entire game felt like a joke, and nobody was taking it seriously. I got subbed out, and I sat on the very end of the bench, just staring at the floor. I didn't want to be out there anymore. At the time, I told myself it was embarrassment, but looking back at it, I was just overwhelmed with everything. Basketball, the injury, the pressure, the feeling of being behind and playing catch-up, and the feeling of being the kid who got hurt. It hit me all at once. After the game, I didn't say a word to anyone. We got on the bus, and I just went quiet. I felt empty. And then my thoughts went somewhere I had never been before. Suicidal thoughts started showing up, and it scared me because it didn't feel like some random thought. It felt like my brain was convincing me it was a solution. When we got back to the school late at night, I got in my car and left immediately. I was crying, shaking, not thinking straight. I was driving recklessly, going 80 miles per hour in a 35 speed zone, almost like I didn't care what happened to me. Thank God there was no traffic. When I got to the turn of my neighborhood, I swerved. I was going to crash my car into a wall. Luckily, I braked just in time and came to a complete stop. I started screaming at myself, thinking about my parents and how they would have felt if I would have done it. I went home, walked in, and told my parents everything. The thoughts, the emptiness, how close I was to taking my own life. We all cried. It wasn't how I wanted to start the new year, but I was just overwhelmed. They told me what the doctors and nurses had told them back when I was in the hospital. They said it was common for TBI survivors to get suicidal thoughts, and they always prayed that I would never feel that. But they were just grateful that I told them instead of keeping it to myself. That night was the start of my mental health journey, and over the next couple months, the way I looked at life completely changed. I consider my senior year of high school as technically my first year out of high school. Due to the coaching staff change at my high school, I felt as if odds were even more against me, since I didn't play varsity the entire year before and had nothing to show for everything that I was capable of doing. Plus, the coaching staff was already favoring everyone that had played varsity as a junior the year before. It honestly sucked because these were the kids that I had played with my entire life growing up. That summer, I started to ask around about other schools because I knew if I wanted to continue to play the game that I love, I had to transfer schools. That year, one of my AAU coaches during the summer, Coach Darius, was the head coach at a small 1A division high school here in Utah. I asked him about possibly transferring and playing for him for my senior year. He said I'm more than welcome to come play for him. I was really considering going there, but at the time, since I was coming from a bigger 5A division school, I wanted to compete at the same level, not knowing that none of that shit matters. There was another school that I had in mind, but the only thing is that I had just met the coach and really didn't know how he ran his program. This other school was also a 5A school, and I would get more of the high school experience if I played there. So I ended up transferring to the 5A school. Looking back at it, it's dumb that I even let that dictate my decision, but everything would eventually come full circle. To make a long story short, my senior year didn't go at all how I planned it to. It started off smooth. Open gyms, I was hooping, and I quickly became one of the main guys that was going to make the team that year. Now, like I said before, I went into the year not knowing anything I was getting myself into. I have a great tryout and I make the team. The first couple weeks of practice go by smooth, and then we get to our first game. I didn't start, which was fine, because I understood that I was a new guy on the team. I get subbed into the game and I'm feeling good. And then I kid you not even 3 minutes go by and I get subbed out. I walk over to the bench and I'm very confused as to why I'm subbed out when I just got in. I didn't play the rest of the game. My entire season ended up being like this. Another year I wouldn't get an opportunity to play varsity basketball. The only difference is that this time it was on a losing team, and there was no next year since I was a senior. The instant feeling of regret of not playing at the 1A school started to settle in because I knew I would have actually played there. On top of all this, I was stuck at a school where I didn't really know anybody and was away from all my friends. This is why I consider it to be my first year out of high school. I tried to make friends, and I did make friends, but I felt as if I didn't fit into the entire environment at this school. At the same time of all this happening, I started to tell those who were close to me about my plans of starting a clothing brand. Now, it was only a vision at the time, but my mind was set on making it happen because I knew exactly how I wanted to go about it. I got the first vision of starting the brand in January of 2022, and after basketball season ended, it was all I could think about. Now, at the time, I had no idea what I was doing, and around the same time is when I picked up Photoshop and started to make designs and experimenting and just trying things out. I taught myself how to use Photoshop through watching hundreds of different YouTube tutorials on different styles and how to color, and I learned all the technical stuff that I needed to get started. Not gonna lie, my first few designs were some bug. Around this time is when I started to reach out to other brands that were already doing it at the time, and most of them left me undelivered, but from the few entries that I did get, I took their advice and ran with it. So then May 13th, 2022 comes around. I dropped my first tees. At the time, I thought that these designs were crazy. It was my Mama Forever V1 and Poodle and Jersey tees, and I spent months making these. I wasn't expecting to get big numbers since at the time we only had 100 followers, but I was just happy that I finally took the chance and started. On the first day I sold 3 tees. One was my cousin and the other was my grandpa. Then another sale came in, but this time it was someone I didn't know. I was so hyped since I didn't think people were going to actually mess with my work enough to actually buy it. That one sale was all I needed though, because I knew in my mind if one person would buy my work, then 10 people could. And if 10 people would, then 100 people could. That same month, I graduated from high school and it was go time. So I got to work and really dialed in on trying to perfect how to use Photoshop and treated it the same exact way I would treat basketball. Continue to get 1% better each day. I became a student of the game and started to take inspo from other big brands that I looked up to and would stay on apps like Depop or Grill just trying to find things that I liked or to take inspo from. I fell in love with the game and slowly but surely my work continued to improve. And even though I got benched my entire senior year of high school, I wasn't ready to give up my hoop dreams quite yet. So at the same time of me teaching myself how to use Photoshop and working hours on my family's catering business, I was still working it out every day like I was preparing to hoop in college because I knew I would find somewhere eventually. That's when I was given an opportunity that would change my life forever. After I graduated high school, I was a little bit lost since my basketball season didn't go as planned. And now I was stuck reaching out to all these colleges to give me an opportunity and not hearing anything back or them responding, asking for film that I just didn't have. I was honestly at a point where I felt as if I didn't have any options and maybe I had to give up on my hoop dreams. My best friend Cena and I, we went to high school together. He was one of the seniors that I was really close with my sophomore year when I got hurt. In the summer of 2022, he started to really help me, training me every day. And I started to see some real improvement in my game. And I started to really adjust my playing style to being more of a shooter, since I had lost a lot of my athletic ability and speed from my injury. And for the past 2 years, I really had to improve since I didn't play much and didn't get any reps. This was just the beginning for Cena too. He had just gotten done with his 2 years hooping at a small junior college in Colorado called CNCC. At the time, he was full-time locked in, training multiple kids a day. We really made it a goal to make sure that I found a home for that next year. Whether that was on a post-grad team or any college that would give me an opportunity. It was a crazy but fun couple months that I'll never forget. Lots of hours in the gym, all summer. Me and Cena would see each other literally every day. That same year he would also be on staff at a local junior college called Slick or Solid Community College, getting in touch with a bunch of college coaches and making a name for himself in the college basketball scene. One random day during that summer, I get a text from Cena sending me a tweet that Coach Darius had tweeted saying that he was going to be the head coach of a brand new post-grad basketball program called Utah Peaks Prep, and he was holding a tryout. When I first saw it, I knew that this could be my opportunity, and this is when everything came full circle for me since I was regretting not playing for Coach Darius the year before. And best believe, I was not going to mess it up a second time. So I go to this tryout, and it's me and 3 others, 4 of us in total. I remember being confused on how we were going to have a team with 4 players, but then I remembered who Coach Darius was and trusted that he had a plan. So we get done with this tryout. I feel like I had a pretty good tryout, but I remember being really out of shape. Then a couple days go by, and I get an email from Coach saying I made the team. I was so happy that day because I felt like I was getting my first real opportunity, and now we were locked in solely on hoop. I even took a break from running the brand at the time since I wanted to give all my time and energy to this. At the time I felt stuck with the brand, so I felt like it was healthy for me to take a step back for a little. And since I knew I would eventually come back to it after I was finished with the season. Plus, I was still working on designs and experimenting with things in my free time. So the first day of school comes around and I still don't know who's going to be on my team for the first couple of days. And it was only me going to school and playing open gyms with all the high school kids. Now the school that my postgrad was at was a high school 45 minutes away from where I lived. I had to make this drive every day just to go to school and practice. The crazy thing about the school was that every single kid that went here was international. They had kids from Brazil, Serbia, Italy, Spain, literally everywhere. It was crazy, but at this point I still hadn't met anyone that was on my actual team. I kept asking Coach Darius if we have a team, and he kept saying that they're all still getting here. I would just laugh and say, from where? He said everywhere. Now from that day on, I feel like we got a new teammate every single day. But when Coach said that they were from everywhere, they were quite literally from everywhere. All of my teammates that year were from all different parts of the world. I had teammates from Spain, Italy, Serbia, England, Russia, Kenya, Turkey, Brazil, and all sorts of places. Me and one of my other teammates were the only ones from the US. It was the most fun I've ever had playing basketball. Plus, we were playing a bunch of actual college teams. Granted, we never won a game because we were playing the most elite of elite junior colleges and post-grad programs at the time. But it was a crazy year. We used to joke around and say how if we had someone film us, like in Last Chance U, we would have gone viral. I now have friends from around the world, and we all share the memories that we had from that year. And man, Coach Darius put us through literal hell. I would have to wake up at 4 a.m. just to make it to weights at 5 a.m. every other day. I would always be 30 minutes late though. You wouldn't believe me that we ran 30 ladders in a row in one practice, and then a few days later, We ran 30 hill sprints in a row. Coach definitely taught us what hard work was that year. I had the best game that I've ever played in my life that year too. My first ever 30-point game. And we got none of it on film. This was the first year where I actually started to feel like myself again, on and off the court. And for the first time, I could say that I have brothers for life from around the world. The timing of everything that went on that year was crazy because that was the first and last year that Coach Darius had coached at Utah Peaks, and now it doesn't even exist. But it was a year that changed my entire perspective on life. Forever grateful for everyone who was a part of that season. Like I said before, we barely won any games, but that was the most fun I've ever had playing basketball. Shout out Coach Darius, Coach Myron, Coach Ev, and all of my teammates. After my season ended at Utah Peaks, I was also wrapping up a couple of college classes, and I was getting ready to start reaching out to college coaches again for the next year. But this year was different. I had lots of film from playing at Utah Peaks, and I was confident that I was going to find a spot. At the same time as all this was happening, I really started to understand how I like to use Photoshop, and the brand really started to grow in numbers. I think around this time we were at around 4,000 or 5,000 followers, and I started to get really confident with my designing skills. Then I dropped the Vince Carter and T-Mac tee, and that was a drop that I really feel like I started to find my style and how I like my tees to look. After that, I dropped the Miles Morales tee on my birthday that year, and it was my first drop where I sold over 200 plus tees. I was super hyped. I had finally hit my first big milestone that I set for myself. I remember me and my grandma packing up orders all night the day all those tees got to me. All around the same time, I had just committed to play college basketball at an NAIA school called Multnomah University. I was getting ready to move up to Portland for the next couple months to go to school and play basketball up there. I was finally happy with where I was at in life, but I knew that this was only just the beginning. I get through my season at Multnomah and meet tons of people and make lifelong friends. I had my first roommate up there too. Shout out my dog, Ray Ray. I had my biggest drop for the brand during my time there too. The Anakin and Darth Vader and Ghostface tees. We once again broke records with this drop as well. I cooked that Ghostface tee in that small ass dorm room. Since I played on the JV team at Multnomah, none of my teammates came back for the next semester, so I decided to pack my bags and come home early. This was in January or February of 2024. Now at this time I was wanting to step out of my comfort zone with the brand and try and start making my own cut and sew pieces. The first pieces that resulted from this were the Michael Jackson double layer long sleeve tee and the first ever OG Yago Shop sweats. If you have any of these, y'all have been tapped in for a minute. I hit up my best friend Mop, and at the time we hadn't seen each other in almost 6 months since I was gone in Portland. But I called him up one day and I asked him if he was down to come shoot in these pieces for this next drop that I was planning for the shop. We met up the next day, and little did we know that shoot would be the beginning of it all. We shot the pics on a Sunday, and we basically just went to downtown Salt Lake City and shot fit pics and just hung out. It was super dope, and that was when we started to ask each other, how can we make a living off doing this? And a couple weeks later, Mop tells me how he wants to start to pursue modeling and take it seriously. This brought the biggest smile to my face. I basically told him, whatever he needs help with, and whatever I can do to help you be successful, I got you for life. That was a start. A couple months go by, and I'm the most consistent that I've ever been with the shop, dropping almost every single month while still working out with Cena, preparing for my sophomore year of college basketball, and again, working hours at my family's catering business. Then we dropped the first ever Spidey Jorts and Spidey tee on my birthday that summer. I was very nervous going into this one since it was my first ever denim piece, and I had no clue how my followers were going to react since all I had really ever dropped in the past was graphic tees. Plus, this piece alone took me months to get the sizing the way I wanted it. The samples that we used in the shoot weren't even perfect, but they did the job. That's when I met Afro for the first time. I found Afro through one of the first shoots that Mob did to start his modeling career. I loved his work, and it was the exact style and vision that I wanted to recreate for the shop. So I hit him up on Instagram and we locked in a day that same day. That day comes around and I didn't know what to expect. This was the very first shoot that I had ever paid for, and I was brand new to it all. But I was excited and really looking forward to it because I knew that everything was going to turn out fire. I had to have my boy Mob modeling these with me. This shoot would go on to change me and Mob's life forever. It made us feel like real life celebrities. Everything about this first shoot went just how I planned it to, and everything ended up turning out perfect. When Afro sent me the final edits for these, I remember being so hyped I instantly started cooking up on the post for the drop. And then came reveal day for my first ever denim piece. Like I said, I was scared but really excited to see what people would say about it. I remember my followers had no idea I was dropping something other than a graphic tee. The love that I got on this post was unreal. The Auto Shop fam loved them and y'all went crazy, and over time we sold out of each piece. Then we had the Spidey tee. Now when this first dropped I was surprised because it didn't get as much love as I thought it was going to get. But I wasn't disappointed because we still sold over 100 plus tees. I was going into this one thinking it would break records just like the Miles Morales tee, but it just didn't. Around the same time, I had just committed to play basketball at Pierce Community College in Washington, so I was spending a lot of time with all my friends and family since I wouldn't see them for another couple months. Then, I packed my bags and moved up to Washington that September. I'll never forget this month because this was the month my entire life changed forever and honestly influenced everything that we've done now. Now, like I said before, I was in the process of moving up to Washington for basketball in school. The month before, I had just reached out to Marilyn and Romeo. They are an influential couple that I've been watching on TikTok for literally years. Now, when I reached out to them, I didn't expect either one of them to respond, but a couple days go by and Marilyn responds. I was hyped because she was the first person that I've ever reached out to that actually responded. I sent her and Romeo a few pieces, the Spidey jorts and the Spidey tee. So fast forward to September and I'm all settled into my new apartment and I just dropped my parents off at the airport and your boy was all alone. Low-key stressing because I didn't know how I was going to pay for rent every single month for the next year. Then I see Marilyn tag me on her story on Instagram. I started to freak out because we started getting lots of followers. At the time I had just barely hit 9,000 followers and all of a sudden we were close to hitting 10,000 that same day. We hit 10K that day and I'm going crazy in my room. I had just met my roommates at the time and I already know that they were thinking I was crazy, but I didn't care because we just hit 10K. I reached out to Marilyn that next day and thanked her for helping me hit 10K, thinking that all these followers were coming from her Instagram story. Turns out she had posted a TikTok and it went viral. That one video changed my entire life and my entire perspective on life. It really is true that it only takes one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. One thing can change your life forever. This was a moment that opened so many doors and visions that I didn't even know I had. Then, the next week, Romeo posted a video about the Spidey tee and the Spidey jorts. It was crazy seeing them actually rocking the pieces that I made and promoting them just because they really liked them. At the time, I was already planning to drop a Halloween collection with no plan of restocking anything from the past. But I remember my DMs being flooded with countless messages saying to restock the Spidey tee since they saw their videos. So since we hit 10K, I decided to throw up a poll up on my story, asking the people if they wanted to restock. And I kid you not, over 1,500 people said to restock it. So I restocked the tee and throw up a hoodie version on the site. I remember rushing to do all the edits because we were dropping all this that same exact day. Drop day comes around and I have my biggest drop I've ever had at the time. My first ever 1,000 order drop. It felt like a dream. Shout out to everyone who caught this drop and everyone who messed with me enough to stick around. You all changed my entire life. Couldn't appreciate the Outshot fam more for all the love and support. Shout out to my cousin Mana and my family and friends for helping me get all these orders out while I was gone. I remember being relieved because that one drop covered my entire lease for the year, and we could also start experimenting with other pieces that I was wanting to release and started getting samples made. From here we really started to dial in and plan out everything I was wanting to do for 2025. All of this being done while still juggling between the shop, school, and college basketball. During this time, me and Mop would be on the phone every night plotting everything that we would eventually work on in the future. Mop was locked in back home on modeling, shooting for some of the biggest brands in the world in his first couple months of taking modeling serious. Forever grateful for Marilyn and Romeo for introducing your boy to a different type of motion and making it possible for me to tap into my creative bag for the next year. During and after my basketball season at Pierce ended, I decided to lock in full time on the shop, isolated, cooking up designs for tees and planning out things I was wanting to accomplish for the next year. Little did I know that this would only be the beginning of everything that I had in store. I like to call 2025 the year of first for me. My first full year running the shop, first YouTube video, first basics collection, first pop-up, first beanies collection, and much more. Looking back at last year was really the start of it all. And everything that we did and everything that you guys saw was just a taste of the vision that I've always had for the shop. Even though it was technically year 3, I like to consider it as year 1 since it was my first full year. I put all my time and effort into running the brand. Jeans and beanies collection, DTMF and the weekend tees, Spider-Man Superman collection, OKC Thunder Champions tee, Invincible and Tim Duncan tees, Jeans and Jorts collection, Basics collection B1, Half and Half Spidey and Dragon Ball Z tees, Beanies collection, Cheetah beanies, and Miles Morales jeans. The most that I've ever put out in 1 year. And the craziest part about all this is that this is just the beginning. I feel like my biggest accomplishment though was starting YouTube and staying consistent with it. I honestly didn't think I would be able to do it, but we ended up exceeding my expectations, dropping 20 plus videos in 2025. We also hit a crazy milestone. Yago Shop fam doubled in size and we have been fortunate enough to grow the shop to 24,000 plus followers and the Discord fam to 1,000 plus members. Thank you to everyone who continues to stay tapped in with everything that we got going on. I would truly be nothing without y'all, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. 2025 was full of ups and downs, but I am extremely grateful to be in the position that I'm in. And like I said before, best believe we're just getting started. The past 6 years of my life have been a roller coaster to say the least, but one thing has been consistent. God has been with me every step of the way, through the hard times, the good times, and everything in between. I know that God has touched every single area of my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today without Him. And I also have to give credit to my first love, basketball. Basketball shaped me. It gave me discipline, routine, and something to hold on to when life got hard. Basketball saved my life. And even though things didn't turn out the way I pictured it, no varsity minutes, no D1, no NBA, it still gave me something real, purpose. It gave me a reason to keep going and a way to feel normal again. And considering everything I had to go through, I'm proud of how far I made it with basketball. I know my story can reach people, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Life can hit you hard, and sometimes it's not fair. In a perfect world, I wouldn't have had to go through what I went through. But if I'm being honest, I wouldn't change anything, even if I could. It changed my perspective. It taught me what matters. It taught me how to keep going when I was at my lowest, and how to push through even when nothing seems to be going my way. I truly believe that experience is what pushed me to take bigger risks. And if I never got that close to losing my life, I don't think I would have had the courage to start my brand and bet on myself the way I did. The crazy part is I'm only 21 years old, and God willing, I've got a lot of life ahead of me. I'm not taking that for granted. I'm gonna make the most of my time I've been given. And if my story can help someone else do the same, then sharing it is worth it. So if you have a dream or a goal to start something, anything, just start. Take the first step, even if it's messy. And I promise you, you will be surprised at what betting on yourself will do for you. Thank you to everyone who's shown love, not just to me, but the brand and everything that we're building. And thank you for hearing my story. Just know that this isn't the end. It's the beginning of what's next.
We locked in right now with that boy Ashton.
We got the full studio setup right now.
Yes sir, bro. Bro, it's been a grind. I can't even lie, but hey, what time is it? It's only 8. It's only 9:30. 9:30. I thought it was like 10:30. We've been cooking, man. Oh, that's good.
Basketball's been from the very beginning of his rehab. Basketball has been there the whole time. It's been his motivation, his drive. You know, from when he could barely even walk, he had a ball in his hand and he would dribble. And his goal was always, I'm gonna get back, Dad. I'm gonna get back. You know, and I know he will.
My name's Santiago Lake. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Utah. I started playing when I was about 3 or 4, and I just always loved it from a young age.
Santiago Lake, he is a great kid, hard worker, tough as nails, loves to compete, great son. Basically, when he was a little kid, you know, I got him involved in all sports. He played soccer. He was good at it. He was just a natural little athlete. He played football, he was good at it. Played baseball, he was good at it. But basketball was the one thing that he just loved. You know, he loved to play all sports, but basketball was just natural. You know, he was the kid when they were all younger and they would play junior jazz or rec league. You know, you can't full court press, but he was the kid who would sit there and wait at half court. As soon as they crossed, boom, he would steal it and go in for a layup.